Hello there fellow cake friends and welcome to this week's tutorial. I am Alexandria, the owner of Finespun Cakes, and today we are making a sparkly, fun, edible tinsel cake, and it is so cute, I can barely handle it. Grab everything you're going to need in the description box below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel while you're down there and follow along for more festive content, and let's get right into the video. So Justine assembled this cake, and what size was it?
6, 5, 4.
6-inch, 1 5-inch, and 1 4-inch layer, and they were all 2 inches tall. And then we added a layer of buttercream between each of them. There's no supports in here yet because our cakes are quite sturdy, but now she is carving it into a tree shape or just some sort of cone shape. And we recommend using a large serrated knife for this. So now Justine is crumb coating the tree. You can see it's not like a perfect cone, but I think it's kind of cuter when it's a little bit chubby looking. And once this is chilled, we are going to mask it in a light gray buttercream. So we've colored this gray buttercream just to make it easier when we go to add the tinsel on, because the tinsel will be silver. So if there's any spots that we miss, hopefully it'll be less noticeable with the gray. And Justine is now masking our little tree. You can see the buttercream here, and this was just white buttercream mixed with a couple drops of black gel paste, which I will link in the description box below, our buttercream recipe as well as the gel paste that we used. She's just gonna go ahead and mask this whole thing as smooth as possible, but again, we're gonna be adding so much stuff onto this, it doesn't matter really if it's perfect, but we'll do what we can. So she's using a small offset spatula just because it's an irregular shape, so that's easier. And then we just use a normal bench scraper in order to scrape off excess. And then finally, we used a plastic scraper to finish it off. Our next step is, of course, to make our tinsel. So the way we're doing that is we're using a method of wafer paper that you blend the wafer paper with water. So that's this mixture here. And then afterwards you cook it in a pan like this over kind of like low medium heat until it crisps up and dries out completely, and then you remove it and it looks something like this. What we're gonna do is we're going to color this afterwards in order to make it silver and glistening and beautiful. I will put that recipe for this gloop stuff on the screen right now. Basically just blend it all together in a small food processor or small blender until it's completely smooth. So the way we're cooking it is just putting 2 scoops of our gloop mixture, which is I think about 2 tablespoons in total. Then you can see it's sizzling already, and Justine's just going to move it around similar to the way you would make a crepe, until it's a really nice thin coating on the bottom. And then once it's like that, we just leave it to completely dry out on the pan. So you'll see it turns lighter, and then you'll see it start crisping up and kind of pulling away from the pan gently. Make sure you're using a non-stick pan for this. I don't think it would work with anything else because we have to cook it dry. You can't add any oil or anything, obviously. And then if there are gaps, you can just put a tiny bit more to fill it out, just like that. So basically we're just trying to make these even sheets of wafer paper. So what we're gonna end up doing is painting this completely silver and then cut it into little fine strips and put that directly onto the cake to make our tinsel. So you'll know it's finished when the wafer paper sheet just lifts directly off of the non-stick pan. It's still sizzling away over here, so once it's completely dried up, it will just lift right off. We have finished cooking up all of our wafer paper goop, so that is all of our sheets here, and they are ready to be turned into tinsel. You can see here what we've already started on, painting all of them silver. So I'm gonna show you exactly how we're going to do that. So I would recommend wearing a glove because it's going to get very Tin Man very fast if you don't. So I'm just putting one over here. I've got a really nice big fluffy brush just to cover more surface area. It's gonna be easier to save time. I've also got just a small container with some silver dust. So you have two options for silver. You can either go with something edible like this. So this is just an edible silver powder, or you can go with a highlight powder if you don't think people are going to be eating it. So this is a non-toxic powder, and then this is an actually edible powder. I'll put links for both in the description box below so you can take a look. If people are eating it, I would go with this guy here. So I'm just going to put more of that into, I'll just put all of that into our container. And we're gonna add some Everclear, or whatever this is, similar to Everclear, very high alcohol content, so that it evaporates and doesn't dissolve our wafer paper. So just gonna smush that around a little bit until it's kind of a nice thick paste on one side. And I'll just wipe off the excess on the edge so it's not going to oversaturate our wafer paper. And I'm just going to hold it on one side and gently brush. So you can do a mixture of a brushing and also dabbing, depending on your brush and, you know, just how it's going for you. Like if you find it tearing too much if you're dabbing, then switch to brushing. I'm gonna do a mix. But yeah, it just a general covering of the silver. It doesn't have to be perfect, because as you'll see over here, when we cut it up into strips later, it's all going to be coming together like this. So you won't be able to tell if there's some parts that are covered and some that aren't. So don't be too fussy about that. So once this is done, I'm just gonna set it over here in order for it to dry and just make sure I've covered all the pieces that I want to, and just allow that to dry. It's only going to take a couple of minutes before it's ready to be used. And you could absolutely do this in any color metallic. You could do gold or rose gold, or even a colored metallic, or like a black metallic would be really fun. So yeah, just try not to oversaturate this with liquid because it will start to dissolve quickly. But if you work fairly quickly and lightly, I'm not pressing down very hard on this, you should be fine. So we are going to work through the rest of our pile here of our wafer paper, and then we are going to get to cutting and attaching all of our little pieces of tinsel together. So Justine graciously went ahead and painted the rest of our tinsel, and now I'm going to show you quickly how we're going to cut it all up. So basically we just need strips of this silver, and it really doesn't matter like how perfect they are or imperfect they are. As we showed you before, like this is
You got stuck.
This is basically what it's going to look like. Just like we'll do little bunches like this and then attach them together, and that will go all the way around the cake. Grab one of your sheets that has dried, and then just take your scissors. Definitely get a big pair of scissors for this, otherwise you'll be here forever. And just cut strips. I would try and make them like, whatever that is, maybe half a centimeter or so in width. But absolutely do not need to be perfect or the same length or anything. And cut some from the other side too, because the wafer paper does tend to be like slightly different textures in different areas. It's just the way that it is. So I'll just show you that we're going to be like mixing and matching all these textures to create a really fun tinsel-y texture in the end. So all of the tinsel has been cut and it's looking great. So much fun. So we've made a little bit of wafer paper glue, and all this is I put like maybe a tablespoon or two of water at the bottom, then I shove as much wafer paper in there as possible and microwave it until it's super smooth and kind of goopy. It's only silver because we used the same brush as before. Anyway, it should be thicker than water, that's the point, so it doesn't dissolve it too quickly. So the way that we're gonna stick these little bunches together, they're gonna look something like this. Grab one or two Make sure your brush isn't too wet with the glue, and then just put a small amount on one piece and then stick it together with another piece. Just make sure you're pressing it quite well between each addition so that it doesn't fall apart. I would say maybe like 6 to 8 pieces in total. And then once you've put them all together, to try and make them look not quite as flat, you can kind of scrunch it a little bit up like this so that they kind of go in different directions, and just a little bit more fun that way. Once you've put your bunches together, I would just set them aside so that they can dry completely at the base, because this is what we're going to use in order to attach them to the cake afterwards. So we'll just make all our groupings here. I'll show you one more. I'm choosing all different shapes and sizes for this so it doesn't look too consistent. And then scrunch it together and place it aside. So we are going to do all of this in this method to make all our little bunches, and then it'll be really quick and easy to attach those all to the cake afterwards. Okay, so our cake has been chilling and it is totally chilled down. So I would say at least a couple hours in the fridge would be ideal. We've also got some more gray buttercream. So this is just extra, and a small offset spatula to apply the buttercream onto the cake. And then we have all of our tinsel here. So these bunches, I didn't show you guys how to do this, but they're very easy. Just put a bit of wafer paper glue on your finger. And then what Justine did was just kind of scrunch them up randomly instead of like placing them all together. So that's what all of these more like pom-pom looking ones are. And then we have all of our regular bunches that are a little bit more organized like this. We were thinking that we will alternate between these more organized type and the more pom-pom types as we go all the way up. And I'm gonna save one good pom-pom one for the very top as well. The way we attach these on is just a little bit of our buttercream and just apply a little dab to your cake. Then grab the top of one of your bunches and just stick it right on. And you can press like fairly firmly to make sure that it's sticking in there. And I would hold it until the buttercream almost has like a chance to set just a little bit so that it doesn't fall off. And if you're finding that they're falling off, you can always add just a little bit more buttercream kind of to the edge. And then once that chills down, it should be pretty quick because it's on a cold cake, it should hold that in place. And then we're just gonna wanna go around doing that same method. Could also use a piping bag for this, if you find that easier. So I'm just going row by row and adding on one little bunch at a time. It does take a little bit of time, of course, to do this, but trust me, it is worth it in the end. It's so cute. And you don't have to make a cake this big if you don't want to. Like, do a 4-inch little tree, it would be adorable. So now I'm gonna start adding on my little pom-pom ones, and I did use a bit more buttercream for these. Then we're back to our more organized one. And if you do find that these things are falling off, kind of find a pointy part, like for our bunches, there's a pointy part at the top, and you can actually just stick that right into the cake. I'm finishing off the very top with our pom-pom looking ones, and then I have my adorable little star one on top. There were a couple gaps, so what I'm doing is just putting a dab of buttercream directly onto the wafer paper and just shoving that pointy bit right into the cake to cover it up. Here is our finished tinsel cake. Can you even handle how cute it is? It's like a little silver holiday monster. Our floofy tinsel tree is all finished, but I do want to add a really nice big red bow on it because the color contrast just looks amazing. So the way we're going to do that is tie our bow, my red ribbon here, and I believe this is 5/8 of an inch. I've got a toothpick which we can insert right into the cake. I've got just a little piece of floral tape and a little piece of wire that I'm going to use to attach the ribbon to the toothpick itself. So we're gonna start with a really big bow first. I just wanna make sure that the ribbon has enough chance to actually like drape all the way down to the table. So at least this long. So just one bunny ear here and the other here, and then tie that together. And just adjust as you want, but I really want to keep it pretty big and floppy. Definitely not perfect or structured, probably a bit asymmetrical too. So I'm not going to cut it yet, just so I can decide on the length once it's actually on the cake. Next, what we want to do is thread our wire just through the back of that loop. And we will close it on itself like this. I'm actually going to trim this wire just so it can be as short as possible. We only need it maybe 1.5 centimeters or so. I'm going to wrap the wire just once around with this floral tape and then attach my toothpick to the top. We can just insert it directly into the top. And then you can always make some slight adjustments to the ribbon if you want it to be floppier or less floppy. And then finally, just trim off that excess ribbon. And voila, here is our tinsel tree. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. I'm gonna link another festive video somewhere in here so you can check that out, and in the description box below, along with all the tools, equipment, and everything that we used for today. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.